Welcome back, friends. It's your old pal, the Vollock, coming to you once again, almost alive from the very bottom of Rocky Top. Woo! Instant reaction. Tennessee 31, South Carolina 27. A win is a win is a win is a win. Almost how I called it. The only thing I didn't foresee were the two late South Carolina field goals. And if one of those field goals had been a touchdown, well, we would have been in some real trouble. Interestingly enough, the offense scored exactly the number that I thought they would, and it was the number I thought they would need to score to win. They didn't get there exactly the way I thought they would, though. I thought that this would be a more run-heavy team, but this team tonight, the coaches were more willing to roll with Garantano than I thought they would be. He was 19 for 31, rushing touchdown, passing touchdown. And those numbers are good enough, but those numbers needed to be accompanied with about 200 rushing yards that we didn't get. I thought the team would be a little more dominant behind the offensive line, and they were in spots. Gray looked good, Chandler looked good, but there were some times when South Carolina's defense actually won the line of scrimmage, and that was troubling. The defense was a real Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing tonight. On the very first possession of the game for South Carolina, let them march right down the field and score. For the rest of the first half, they really clamped down. The very next possession, Henry T., pick six to the house. It was a beautiful thing to see. Got pressure. We had to blitz to bring pressure. The defensive line wasn't getting a lot on its own. But when we got there, it was pretty. There were a lot of sacks, a lot of hurries, a lot of bad decisions. But when we didn't get there, he was hitting that Shy Smith kid on a slant and was just picking up chunks of yards. I hope that kid's a senior because I never want to see him again. Oh my goodness. I guess we'll chalk those extra two field goals up to their demon chicken god. It was almost enough to get them over, but not quite enough. All in all, there was some first game rust, and it appeared on the defense there were two or three guys, Darrell Middleton, Sean Schamberger, who I'm assuming didn't make the trip or didn't play due to COVID tracing issues. We might find more out about that. Not 100% sure, but we had some freshmen playing. Tyler Barron played. He played well. He also looked like a freshman in spots. Slaughter played well in spots, looked like a freshman in spots. But I think that's going to be the way it goes this year. You're going to have to play with what guys you got available that night. So who knows? I mean, there could be a game when we're down more guys. We might get all our guys back and play with them the rest of the year. It's going to be a nutty season. No one really knows what's going to happen. But I don't want to be too hard on the Vols. After all, Florida didn't look good early. Of course, they poured it on late. Georgia didn't look good early. They poured it on late. Alabama seemed to pour it on early and then let Missouri get some cosmetic scores against the backups. We'll see. I haven't really seen any of that game yet because I was watching the Tennessee game. LSU kind of started slow and stayed slow and got beat by Mississippi State at home. And because of that, Tennessee now owns the nation's longest winning streak. Ooh, that's a nice cherry to hold out in front of this team for the next few weeks. How long can they keep it going? Missouri, I'll talk more about as we get into this week, but that you would think is also a winnable game before you have to go down to Georgia. Again, Georgia didn't show a ton today. They were at an Arkansas team that had lost, I think, 19 straight games in the conference. Sam Pittman had them ready to play. They were game. They were definitely game. But at the end, they didn't have the horses. Same thing with Ole Miss against Florida. I think that Lane Kiffin, begrudgingly, I will admit, had a pretty good game plan today. Ole Miss knew how to attack Florida's defense. Ole Miss didn't have the horses on their own defense to stop Florida's tight end from catching 4 scores. It happens. But fortunately, we won't see the Gators till the very end of the season. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're an especially deep team, so we'll see what attrition takes place through these next 8 games for both teams. So there's a lot to build on. I think Garantano, like I said, he was good enough to win this game. Whenever he missed tonight, he missed high. Really high. Now, there were some balls that the receivers got their hands on and maybe should have brought in that were a little high or a little outside or what have you. I think that Jawan Jennings and Marquez Callaway covered up for a lot of collective quarterback sins last year. But guys like Ramel Keaton and Palmer and Brandon Johnson, they're going to have to learn to do the same thing if Tennessee's going to be successful this year. All in all, I give the game a solid B. You know, probably should have won by a little more. Probably should have played a little better on defense. Probably should have scored at least one more time. But played well enough to win. You won your first game on the road in the SEC after a weird off-season where you didn't get the normal practicing that you usually get. And frankly, I wasn't sure. I don't think anybody was really sure until today how some of these teams were going to look coming out of the game. I don't even think some of their own coaches knew how they were going to look coming out of the gates today. So there's a lot of joy in Starkville. I, for one, am happy to see Mike Leach in the SEC. Glad he's not on our schedule this year. But he's always a fun watch. He's going to do fun things in Starkville. He's going to beat a team like LSU, like he did today. He's also going to lose an inexplicable game to someone who's got no business beating him. It's the way that offense is. He's going to throw, and throw some more, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. But they're riding high after walking into Death Valley and walking out with a win. Although, dirty little secret, although I will deny this once we get to LSU week, but I don't hate Ed Orgeron. I don't know if you caught his piece on 60 Minutes this past Sunday, but he's a likable sort of guy. And believe it or not, his mom is named Coco, and they appear to be exactly the same age. So Coach O and Coco O are running things in the Bayou. I think they're going to be fine. I think I would hate to be Vanderbilt next week to get that sort of fired up LSU team after them. Although Vandy did not get their doors blown off by A&M. I think that ended 17-12 or something like that. That's surprising too. That's another one I'm going to have to at least see some highlights of to figure out what went on, because all the word out of Vanderbilt this offseason was they might not even have enough bodies to play. And they went into College Station and apparently hung with Texas A&M pretty good. So that's going to be interesting. In an all-conference season, none of them are give-me's. None of them are easy. There are no nights off. There are no directional texts on anybody's schedule this year. It is to the wall, 10 games, and Tennessee took a big step tonight. With only 10 games, and I think the Big Ten only playing 8 or 9, and the Pac-12 is only playing 7 games. I don't know how they're going to do bowl eligibility this year, but if it's the standard, Tennessee just got one of the 6 wins that it would need to qualify for some sort of postseason. If that happens, one step at a time. Another note about this game, and I don't really understand why, but this game between Tennessee and South Carolina, it's always incredibly chippy. And I don't understand it. They're not these, I guess they're long-term rivals now that South Carolina came into the conference in 1992. But, they're not one of these ancient rivalries that goes back to like 1887 and they've other than the Second World War, they've played every year or something like that. But these two teams, they really do seem to hate each other. And, it got the better of Tennessee a couple of times. A couple of silly penalties. A couple of silly penalties on Jeremy Banks. Really need to get that locked. I mean, it's a good story. I'm glad he did what he needed to do to get back on the team. But it was a bad late hit. It was a bad face mask. In a game this close, you don't need to cost your team 30 yards. I think he's going to get his head put on straight. I think the coaches are going to talk to him. I think he's going to understand what it is he needs to do. Because he's an aggressive player and he's a good player. We need him at linebacker. But there was just a lot of that kind of back and forth. Although he did seem to get in Shi Smith's head at one point on a third down, or on a second down, got him out of the game on the third down, where he probably would have been a target. And that was one of the field goals that South Carolina had to settle for. So that, it sort of goes both ways. But it's just a bizarrely emotional game. I'm glad it's in the rearview mirror at this point. I'm glad we're not going to see them, around Halloween like we usually do. The quarterback for them, got tired of hearing how many ACL surgeries he's had. But he was tough. He stood in there. He took some shots. He completed some balls. My hat's off to him. They gave Tennessee everything they wanted and more. But in the end, they worship a giant golden chicken, and that was not going to get it done. So, like I said, a win is a win is a win. Glad to be at 1-0. It feels a lot better than 0-1 felt last year when, we lost to Georgia State. And then we turned around and lost to BYU, and I ended up going on strike. Go watch some of those videos if you want to be entertained by my pain. But 1-0 feels good. 1-0 in the SEC. Longest winning streak in the country right now. And it's great to be a Tennessee Volunteer. So thank you for tuning in. I'm the Vollock, and as I always say, if you're not willing to make a Faustian bargain to beat your rival, are you really even a fan?